Morning, Doc. Good morning, classmate. My name is Robilyn Quezon Cinco, and I am going to discuss to all of you different research articles. The first one is practices of teachers and parents of learners with special educational needs during pandemic. You can read all the authors of this research on my screen. So we are going to discuss first the background of this study. So, who are parents in this group? Do you agree in this first statement that being a parent has never been an easy task, right? Rearing a child from birth until the child enters schooling has different phases of challenges. Parenting a child with special educational needs is even more challenging. The new normal setup of distance learning delivery modalities or the DLDM has even made the situation with deeper degrees of difficulties in dealing not only with learners with special educational needs or orphans, but to the parent as well. According to Shade and Ware 2020, as stated in this article, that educational system turned into its new normal way. Parents face even more complex problems with limited or sometimes no clear solutions at all. This claim was also supported by Kuo and Colma 2020, as still stated in this article, who asserted that appointments, learning therapies, school routines had significantly been affected to minimize the transmission of the COVID-19. There are different theories anchored to this research. The first one is the theory of behaviorism. When we say behaviorism, this theory states that learning is an outcome of an improved behavior. The environment or the situation determines the behavior, including time and reinforcement, are two crucial factors in learning process. The second theory is the theory of emotional development. It emphasizes that a child's environment can provide multiple interconnected activities. The third theory, the social learning theory by Albert Bandura, according to this theory, the vital role of observing, modeling by example, mirroring actions, attributes, and emotional responses influence a person's learning behavior. The fourth theory is Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. So this theory views that interacting with knowledgeable person or individuals can be a source to acquire cultural values, beliefs, and problem-solving strategies. Thus, learning comes before development. And according to Piaget's theory of cognitive development, focus on learners' capabilities in the realization of such skills further explains that the proof of the reasoning capacity of a child after acquiring new skills. And the last is the depth and order number 32 series of 2020 strongly supports RA 9155. According to this depth and order, it emphasizes that parents, guardians, and other household partners play a complementary and broader role in supporting learners home. So there are methods used in this research. One is descriptive correlational. Descriptive correlational it specifically describes the demographic profile of the teacher respondents. So the study also described the problems encountered by the teachers and parents of the homeschooled learners with special educational needs in the DLDM and how serious they are as to behavioral and cognitive development. The respondents' extent of practices during a pandemic are among the interests of the study. There are 22 teachers and 26 parents respondents from Academia de Santiago of Tarlac and Angel Beat Play and Development Center, Manila, Philippines. Purposive sampling was employed in selecting the respondents. Further, total enumeration was used. When we say purposive sampling, it is also called judgmental sampling. This sampling method relies on researchers' judgment when identifying and selecting the individual cases or events that can provide the best information to achieve the study's objectives. In other words, units are selected on purpose in purposive sampling. Total enumeration is a type of purposive sampling technique where the researcher chooses to examine the entire population that have a particular set of characteristics. The transmittal letters and survey questionnaire are the instruments used in this research. Were used to gauge of the individual's problems encountered by the teachers and parents as to behavioral and cognitive development, as well as the extent of the practices of teachers and parents of the homeschooled learners with special educational needs during pandemic. Data gathering procedures. In the conduct of the study, the researcher observed the gathering and quantification of the data through preliminary preparation, sampling, administration, distribution, retrieval of the questionnaires, data processing, and scoring procedures. The researcher employed the 4-point Likert scale with parametric scaling. When we say 4-point Likert scale, it is a forced scale, which essentially means forcing a respondent to form an opinion either way. Basically, a type of scale used to measure the respondent's opinion towards a particular subject, such as, for example, satisfied, very satisfied, dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. So there are statistical tools employed in this research. First one is the frequency, percentage, average weighted mean, correlational analysis. So as you can see, there is table 1, the screen. The table 1 talks about learners category of special educational needs handled by teachers. So there are type of learners with special educational needs. So we have 7 different or type of learners with special educational needs. We also have the total number of respondents. So we have the first type, we have the ADHD and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, followed by emotional and behavioral disorder, the EBD, the speech delay, autism spectrum disorder, or the ASD, intellectual disability, deaf and hard of hearing, and others. So there are total of teachers, total number of respondents. For ADHD, we have 4 total teachers. The EBD, we have 4 teachers. The speech delay, we have 6. ESD, we have 3. ID or intellectual disability, we have 2. Deaf and hard of hearing, we have 1. Others, we have 2. Total of 22 respondents. So the percentage of the total number of teacher respondents we have here. For AHD, we have 18.18. EBD, we have 18.80. Speech delay, we have 27.27%. ASD, we have 13.64. Intellectual disability, we have 9.09%. The deaf and hard of hearing, we have 4.55%. In others, we have 9.09%, total of 100%. So in table 1, it can be easily gleaned in the findings that majority 6 or 27.27% of the teacher respondents handle learners with speech delay, followed by ADHD 4 or 18.18% and EBD with same frequency of 4 and percentage of 18.18%. This implies that SPED teachers must be equipped with the latest pedagogical approaches in attaining educational goals using GLDMs amid COVID-19 pandemic to address the special needs of these learners. Then now we have the table 2, the learners category of special educational needs handled by parents. The same as the table 1, we have different type of learners with special educational needs. We have 7. In this table, we have the ADHD, the EBD, and speech delay have the higher, same total number of parents respondent. Then the deaf and hard of hearing, we have 1 or the 3.8%. Right? In table 3, we have the summary table on the problems encountered by teachers and parents. The findings show that the teacher respondents collated a verbal description of greatly encountered problems in the behavioral aspects of the lens learners with a noted mean of 2.63, while encountered problems in their cognitive development with a recorded 2.28 mean score. This data implies that lens teachers are experiencing difficulties in dealing with actions and manners as well in the delivery of learning for the differently abled children. Parents must ensure that their homeschooled children receive a high quality education. However, now that the school system has settled distance learning, parents face even more complex situations with almost no clear solutions according to Shade and Ware as stated in this article. This concept highlighted that cognitions, emotions, and moods are far too subjective as observable behaviors. That's according to Cherry 2021 as still stated in this article. We're going to talk about the table 4, the extent of teachers' practices. As you can see, we have the teacher provides the child assistance by, and you can also read mean and verbal description. So one is coordinating with other adults in the family in assuring consistent involvement in students' learning routine. So we have there, we have we have 15 we have 15 teachers practices. So we have the total weighted mean, the 3.27, which is great extent. Generally, the data indicates that generally teacher respondents have been practicing thoroughly that developed to a great extent experience and learning, thus acquiring the skills in handling the home school learners with special educational needs during pandemic. So, 6, the relationship between the profile of the respondents and the extent of teacher practices. So we have 15 practices. Yes, with overall we have here. So the computed overall value of probability, the 93.6667 with a p-value, this one, the 0.003, that is less than the alpha level, the 0.05, suggests that the null hypothesis stating that there is no significant relationship between the profile of the respondents and the extent of teachers' practices is rejected. So in table 7, between profile of the respondents and the extent of parent practices, um, we have 15, we have 15 practices. The computed overall value of probability, the 55.556 with a p-value 0.056 that is greater than the alpha level 0.05 suggests that the null hypothesis stating that there is no significant relationship between the profile of the respondents and the extent of parents' practices is accepted. This means that there is no enough evidence to claim that there is a significant relationship between the profile of the parent respondents and the extent of the parent practices. Based from the summary and findings of the study conducted, it is concluded that both teacher respondents and parent respondents are struggling in dealing with the identified and encountered behavioral and cognitive development problems of the homeschooled LSAN in the DLDM. However, the degree of the encountered problems is more concentrated on the part of the teachers. Furthermore, it can also be concluded that the teacher respondents' demographic profile was a significant factor in the extent of teachers' practices. On the other hand, parent respondents' demographic profile was not a significant factor in the extent of parents' practices among homeschooled learners with special educational during a pandemic. So that's the end of this research article. So hope you've learned something. Now we are going to I'm going to read first the recommendation of this research article. So based on the findings of the study, it is hereby recommended to appeal and the two teachers' competencies in handling learners with special educational needs in the delivery of online teaching learning and in the formulation of LAS as added supplementary materials, capacitate teachers in offering special education services, focusing on IEPs through training workshops. Schools may also find ways and means on how they can provide assistance to teachers in terms of providing facilities which are necessary in the implementation of DLDM. Finally, implementation of the action plan is hereby recommended to improve the behavioral and cognitive aspects of the learners, and to further improve practices of teachers and parents in the homeschooled learners with special educational needs during a pandemic and its aftermath. Okay. So now we are going to discuss the second article, which is all about mainstreaming learners with special needs in a regular classroom, a scoping review. Still, you can see all the authors of this research article. So first, we are going to uh, read the introduction of this research article. So every individual living in society needs education to become competent in self-realization, communication, and productivity. Through various programs, this will be made possible to fulfill each individual's expectations and differences. However, every learner has their learning style and emotional qualities that's according to Akar 2000, as stated in this article. There are people who are born with special needs, while others develop them along the way. Those people need help and assistance to develop themselves in various areas to help them live effectively in society. These people in the education context are referred to as LSENs or learners with special needs. According to Pigel et al. 1997, as still stated in this article, the method of teaching children with disabilities in regular classrooms becomes a global agenda that is known as educational inclusion. Thus, various international acclaimed organizations and countries have committed to promoting inclusive education. Okay. Lessons are mainstream in a regular classroom in most developing countries because of the lack of support and interventions. In the Philippines, the implementation of mainstreaming in primary and secondary schools is anchored in the Department of Education's Order Number 72, Series of 2009. However, this does not provide a different process of mainstreaming LSAN in a regular classroom. Thus, it generates various gaps amongst teachers and students in mainstream classrooms, especially in physical education. According to Kern 2006, stated in this article, highlighted that for mainstreaming to be effective, typically developing children, adolescents, parents, stakeholders, school administrators, and regular classes must all work together to prepare for mainstreaming adolescents and its initiatives. The success of mainstreaming is determined by the degree to which inclusive education students obtain acceptable and desirable levels of inclusive education and ordinary educational services. Furthermore, the effective implementation of such services is dependent on a few additional factors. So the research design use employed in this article, that's according to Kari 2019 and Buddha 2022 are stated in this article stress that Coping Review describes existing studies and different sources of information, which frequently include results from various research designs and methods. It necessitates structured and thorough searches in the studies to identify significant and relevant information, provide reproducible results, reduce bias from flawed implementation. Arski and O'Malley discuss 5 steps to conducting a systematic review. So according to them, there are 5 systematic review. The first one is identify the research question. 2, identify relevant studies. 3, study selection. 4, sorting the data. 5, collating, summarizing, and reporting the results. So in identifying research questions, according to Shoket 2014, as still stated in this article, defines research questions as queries that reveal one's knowledge and understanding limitations. They identify with either problematic occurrences, happenings that are perplexing in our current accepted concepts, or challenging beliefs, existing concepts that are contested by new theories. According to Merton, Broom, and Cottrell, 1959, still stated in this article, researchers must substantiate the needs for awareness and other finite resources that research makes. The social institution and science endorse the responsibility that they substantiate the claim by granting upon on the researcher the authority to charge that a story gets the topics mentioned of each others as well. So identifying relevant studies. We have here the table 1. It talks about inclusion and exclusion criteria. So in the criterion column, we have their time period, language, type of article, publication, inclusion, we have time, okay. So in the inclusion, we have the time period 2000 to 2021. The exclusion is studies beyond these states. Language, we have English. Exclusion, we have non-English studies. Type of article or publication, we have journal articles, conference papers, doctoral thesis, and dissertations. Exclusion are articles that are not published in journals, not presented in a conference, or not a doctoral thesis or dissertation. We also have in that criterion, we have the study focus, the literature focus, and population and sample. In inclusion, we have teachers in the basic education who serve as the implementer of inclusive education. Articles in which mainstreaming and inclusive education have great emphasis. Teachers who are handling mainstream classes. Exclusions are all other students and educational settings. Articles that focus specifically on LSAMs. Articles in which spiral progression approach has a significant bearing emphasis. Teachers who are not handling special educational classes and mainstream classes. Next, we have here the study selection. So you can see in the study selection, we have a total of 187 articles were identified through the above mentioned databases. Search and 26 additional records or the gray literature identified through specific sources, of which 15 duplicates were excluded. The remaining 208 articles were screened for relevance, date, and study scope. 159 articles were identified as irrelevant, leaving 244 articles being categorized as potentially relevant studies. Then a total of 39 records were excluded based on the type of articles, availability of full text articles, and population. Overall, 10 articles were identified as relevant studies with a scoping review. Illustrates in figure 1, study selections, yes, is table. Okay. So we have now the shuttering the data. Okay. So we have here table 2 included studies. So the first column, we have the study number, authors, details, year, and location. We have also study design, participant sample outcomes. In the third column is for outcomes. So first we have the Bagisa and Ang Manaig, 2019 Philippines. We also have the Cook, 2015 South Africa. In third, Davis and Florian, 2004 USA. Okay, the Bagisa and Ang Manaig. We have here a survey questionnaire was used. The data was interpreted and evaluated using a Likert conversion scale. So the study outcomes, the outcome is the study found a strong association between and among respondents' knowledge and attitudes about inclusive education. So we have here, we have 10. Okay, we have 10 authors or study numbers, the author, author details, year and location. We have different designs, research designs they used in their different studies. So next we have the research findings and discussion. So we have here the first findings is what are teachers' attitudes and perceptions towards mainstreaming sense of learners with special needs in a regular classroom? The research has shown that teachers' attitudes towards mainstreaming and inclusion vary. So according to Murphy, 2014, as stated in this article, highlighted that mainstreaming and integration are used when describing practices in inclusive. Thus, the term inclusion sometimes denotes a shift in attitudes and perceptions. And according to Manaig and Bagista, teachers have positive views about mainstreaming lessons because they feel that LSAMs should be given every chance to operate in a regular class. It has also been demonstrated that students advance at their own and acquire positive attitudes towards mainstreaming. According to Dukma 2013, stated in this article, discovered that teachers have positive perceptions towards mainstreaming, LSAMs to become most positive when they view educational placement for LSAMs to be in a regular classroom. On the contrary, teachers' attitudes became the least positive when they viewed educational placement for LSAMs to be outside the regular classroom. So, what are teachers' attitudes and perceptions towards mainstreaming of LSAMs in a regular classroom? So, according to Monson 2004, as stated in this article, revealed that student population becomes an environmental factor affecting teachers' attitudes towards inclusion. Teachers could be less positive about mainstreaming LSAM when they only have a manageable class size. According to William 2002, stated in this article, found out that male educators developed more positive perceptions and attitudes towards mainstreaming. Similar findings can be found in the studies of Dukmak, Banning, Harasime, and Home 1975 as stated in this article. So, third, what are the issues and problems encountered by the teachers in mainstreaming lessons in a regular classroom? So, the teachers have shown that mainstreaming lessons in regular classrooms challenge teachers, the schools in various ways. According to Rock Holile, 2006, as stated in this article, stress that teachers experience difficulties because they are not thoroughly trained and knowledgeable in how to identify learners with barriers and how to deal with these problems. Hence, teachers need to become knowledgeable in adapting the curriculum and assessment strategies to assist the learners who are experiencing barriers to learning. The lack of training among inclusive teachers indicates that they want to be competent to facilitate high-level inclusion of all sense. According to Sukraj 2019, as stated in this article, concluded that negative perceptions and attitudes towards inclusive education develop. The Department of Education has provided a lack of support, including skills training, limited resources and facilities, negative attitudes, stereotyping of differences, inflexible curriculum, inappropriate communication, inadequate support services, educator overload, and parent time involvement. What teaching strategies and approaches were used in teaching mainstream classroom? First, we have the non-linguistic strategies. There are six. The physical models, pictographs or diagrams, kinesthetic representations, graphic organizers, outlining, mental mapping that help learners discover and learn in meaningful ways. We have also learner-centered strategies are used to allow learners to develop their skills, including social interaction, acquire accessible local environments, and develop dependence. We have systematic strategies and approaches are also used in teaching mainstream classrooms, which aims to increase active participation in learning, easily adapt to the environment, and integrate technology. Studies have also proven the effectiveness of the peer tutoring method in facilitating inclusive education. What teaching strategies and approaches were used in teaching mainstream classroom? Yes, the last one is we have the cooperative team approach. Good for teaching inclusive physical. The study demonstrated the usefulness of cooperative learning in the development of social skills in the students with and without special needs and the usefulness of various inclusion strategies. So for the conclusion, we have here mainstreaming learners with special needs in a regular classroom help promote active and meaningful learning in the classroom. It also promotes inclusivity despite the diversity and individual differences of the students. With its complexity, teachers' attitudes and perceptions towards mainstreaming vary. They have positive and negative attitudes towards mainstreaming. Teachers have also experienced major challenges in implementing inclusive education, which include lack of seminars and trainings, resources and facilities, support from the district and all Department of Education. The conduct of mainstream classes, teachers use varied teaching approaches and methods, including physical models, pictographs or diagrams, aesthetic representations, graphic organizers, outlining, and mental mapping. They also use learner-centered strategies, cooperative team approach, and systematic strategies to teach mainstream classes which can be applied to physical education system. So, so that's the end of my report. Thank you for listening. Once again, my name is Roblin Quezon Cinco.